So what is wrong with our kids? There are reports that more youth are reporting suicide ideation, which are suicidal thoughts, and then more youth are also having suicide attempts. So part of that is good news, not the suicide attempts, but the reported suicidal thoughts is actually, I think, good news. We've been working really hard over the last few years to educate kids and educators and people in the community, parents, to have kids reach out for help when they're struggling and when they see their friends struggling, to get help for them as well. And I think we're starting to see that trend happen. More kids are reaching out for help when they're struggling. I think we just didn't realize how many kids were struggling. We have a lot of kids that are struggling. And I think there are a few reasons for this. One, adolescence, and I'm talking about the age range of 10 to 25, because that's when there are significant brain changes. And also during that time period is when we have the physical changes of puberty, which my kids love when I bring up that word. So there's a lot of changes during that time period. That's always been kind of a challenging time because of all of the change. So, I mean, even when I was a kid, challenging time. So just a challenging time in general. So one, that's always been a challenging time. Two, I think youth today, it's more challenging. So some of the things that are normal during adolescence, I mentioned brain changes. So the prefrontal cortex, I'm not going to talk too fancy talk, but it's the last part of the brain to develop. And that part of the brain is in charge of good decision making. If you have a teenager, you know that they struggle with that. They struggle sometimes with organization. And they also struggle with problem solving. So these are the parts of the brain that are last to develop. And the part of the brain that's really in charge during ages 10 to 25 and is the emotion center. So this part of time of life is really intense. And I'm not sure kids know that. They think this is how life is always going to be. And sometimes they get messages from adults saying, this is the best time of your life. This is the easiest time of your life. It's only going to get harder, which is great when you're really struggling with a really emotional time and having trouble figuring things out. So life actually gets easier after adolescence because your brain's fully developed and it's easier to figure things out. But I don't think teenagers know that. And everything they encounter goes right to that emotion center, which can make it pretty intense. So that's one reason why I think this is a hard time. But that's been the same throughout history. So why now? Why are kids struggling more now? Well, kids today are always on stage. So that's developmentally appropriate. Like we have always thought that. That's part of the adolescent brain, thinking you're always on stage, everybody cares what you're doing. But kids today, they are, because of phones and social media. And so there's this expectation of perfection. And when I talk to kids, and I talk to them, but I survey them too, because you get more honest responses with anonymous surveys. And they tell me, like, I feel like I have to be perfect at school, at home. And so part of that is because their lives are being documented by their friends, by their classmates. So even if we as parents take their phones away, their lives are still being documented by others. And so there's that expectation of perfection that they can't mess up because they don't want to be embarrassed. And then I think sometimes as parents and adults, we expect perfection because we don't want it documented. And I think part of that's fear on our part too, at least mine as a parent, putting that fear on them not to mess up because it may mess up their future. They feel all that pressure and that need to be perfect. So I think as adults, we can help lighten that load because since their brain isn't fully developed, mistakes should be expected. And I think the message we should be giving them is, hey, you're going to mess up. We messed up a ton. I messed up a ton. And I'm here to help you figure that out. That's my job as an adult in your life, to help you figure things out. So feel free to come to me when you make mistakes. I will help you figure them out. So helping them get rid of that perfection thing. Also working with students, I hear that they have to have their whole life figured out, which I don't have my whole life figured out. So helping them take the next best step instead of figuring out their whole lives, because things change. So let's just figure out the next best step. That's a tongue twister. So those are a couple things. And then just really letting them know they're supported, really letting them know, because I'm not sure that our kids know that. They think that they're constantly being judged, and part of that is part of the age, but just really letting them know that they're loved and supported. So this behavior, these suicidal thoughts, it suggests that their brain is getting stuck a lot. They're under a lot of stress, and more suicidal attempts are due to stress than diagnosed mental health disorders. And so helping kids identify what is causing stress, let's list those things out. Let's see how I can help you tackle some of those things. And I'm here to help you. I'm here to support you. And really emphasizing that with our kids. Because the suicidal thoughts, that's a symptom of something. Our kids are telling us that things aren't working. And so it's our job to kind of step in, listen, and see what we can do to make it better. So have a great day. Thanks for listening. Be good to yourself. Be good to each other.